And I don't know what the hell that does to her. The mess between her Kelly Townsend's going to run. Then she Trump's endorsed.
Here we go. Item 39, I'd like to consider, it's kind of bifurcated. B, where we'd be rescinding prior condition on the developer, and then I'll be continuing A.
Okay.
We've got a couple more things we have to figure out.
So you need a motion, you need to make a motion to reconsider actions.
Yeah, motion to reconsider right there,
Okay.
the condition.
Okay, that's what I thought that was, so.
Yeah. And then we'll be pushing forward on the other thing.
Okay.
In a couple weeks. Thanks.
Ready? I'm going to call the Mojave County Board of Supervisors meeting for March 21st to order. Please join me for an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, we have a designated prayer.
I must not have introduced myself to the right person. My apologies. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning, and I thank you for this opportunity to be able to pray for our county supervisors this morning. We are very thankful and grateful for this great country that you've given us and for the ability to be able to participate in its government. Father, I ask you to be with all of those present here today. May your divine wisdom guide those who are making decisions that will affect our community. Help them to be good stewards of everything that you have blessed us here in Mojave County. Father, help us all to be good neighbors to one another and help us to show love and peace to one another. We just love you so much, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Board of Supervisors, by motion, may recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorney on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A, 3, 4, and 7. A motion and action for for an executive session to be held April 4th, 2022 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A, 3, 4, and 7 to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So made.
Second.
For that motion and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Discussion of pending, any discussion of pending legislation or litigation rather?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee or legislative reports, Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you, Chairman Gold. Let's see, on the 9th, I attended or chaired the Board of Health meeting, and then on the 11th, I chaired the CSA LPC meeting in Phoenix, also the county managers meeting I sat in as a guest and also with the insurance pool. And then that afternoon, I attended the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission legislative meeting. On the 14th, I attended the ACO, Arizona Association of County Officials Legislative Policy Committee meeting. And then on the 17th, while on vacation, I attended virtually the CSA Board of Directors meeting. And then, of course, this afternoon, I'll again attend the ACJC meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Angus?
Yes, thank you. Last week, we had a meeting, the annual meeting of our Employee Benefit Trust, and I'm happy to report that the trust is really doing well, very healthy. Because of that, we were able to we voted to absorb some of the extra costs. You know, everything is going up in COVID. There was a small rise. It was recommended to us that we raise the employee premiums by 3%. but we chose instead, as we have in the past. It's worked before, and we hope it works again. We were also able to give some extra benefits. We have some exciting things coming down the pike, which you'll hear about from HR. And our vision, was it dental or vision, has gone up a bit in what you get. It's the vision, correct? Or the dental?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So just keep your eyes open, employees, for getting notices from HR to let you know. I know open enrollment is soon. Is that true? And if you have any questions, and if anyone on the board wants a real in-depth, we can ask Erin Collins to come and really explain it. But fortunately for us, COVID didn't hit us as much as we expected it to. So we're very happy about that. And again, if you have any questions, you can contact me or the county manager. Also, on Friday, like Supervisor Bishop, I attended the CSA meeting, which is always interesting. We had a long presentation on water from somebody from ADWR, Clint Chandler, I believe his name is. And that was always interesting. And then we got the updates on some of the bills, which again, some are good and most are bad. And we'll be talking more. I mean, we're just sort of now in the process of going through hearings and things like that. So if you want to know, I suggest you go on websites and then contact the representatives if you have problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only update I have is that working with Congress, we have Senator Brasso is running a bill, sponsoring a bill, ban uranium imports from Russia. So far, still looking for some Democrat support on the bill, but it has a fairly good chance of gaining some ground on this. So, goodbye.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I've got an update this morning on some of the water legislation that we're monitoring. So House Bill 2055, that's the Harquahala non-expansion area groundwater transportation bill. It's Griffin's bill. That passed out of the Senate Natural Resources Committee last week. Next step is Senate Rules agenda. There's challenges to this bill as it stands now, unless it's part of a wider discussion on multiple water issues, including the P4, priority 4 water that our Colorado River communities solely depend on. House Bill 2512, that's the Colorado River Water Local Communities Bill. It's a Cobb's bill. As everybody knows, last week, this bill became House Bill 2389. It was a striker amendment to Tim Dunn out of Yuma's bill last week. I went down to testify, and we were successful in getting language incorporated into that bill. So what that bill does, it carves out the current GSC to Queen Creek transfer that Mojave County has been part of fighting, but for subsequent fourth priority transfers, it would only allow the water to be transferred to the water that was allocated to the river communities so many years ago, north and south, as it always has been. It would prohibit our P4 water from being transferred to central Arizona. That's a good thing. So it's likely to go to the Senate Rules Committee next week. And we'll continue to press that fight and hope for the best. But gotta say, I'm really proud of all of our delegation. We had Jamie Kelly go down from Mojave County Water Authority, myself. So we were successful, but if you listen to some of that testimony, you had the guy from GSC Farms, you know, in his testimony, if I were running for political office, I'd grab these things as sound bites, but he said, you know, these river communities don't need the water. He basically said, we don't need it. He said that on record. So, well, I think we might see things a little differently on that. So we'll continue to monitor that. House Bill 2661, that's the rural management area bill that Cobb ran again. This bill is essentially dead. We didn't get even a hearing from Griffin again. but our legislators and all of us on their team are pushing hard to incorporate that RMA language into the Arizona Water Authority bill, hopefully. So the Arizona Water Authority bill, that's House Bill 2725, Senate Bill 1611. The House continues to have joint caucus meetings on this bill to try and sell it. In its current form, on both sides of the aisle, it's basically DOA. It's not going to go anywhere, but I think with some negotiated modifications, it could be workable on water this legislative session. And I know our delegation and many in rural Arizona are committed to trying to get the RMA legislation or language incorporated into that, because right now, as it stands, the AWA really doesn't do anything for rural Arizona. So we'll continue to monitor that. And then last but not least, I'll mention the House Bill 2836. That was the interim groundwater review areas bill from Griffin. As everybody remembers, Cobb had her RMA language incorporated through a hostile amendment, and that amendment was added to the temporary RMA bill. Representative Griffin then asked for the bill to be held, and it's essentially dead now for all intents and purposes. So right now we're really watching the Stryker bill, Dunn's bill, we're watching the Harquahala bill, we're watching the AMA bill, but hopefully there's still a chance for some success for those of us on the river and in rural Arizona on water this year. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Welcome to the board game called Legislature, where we play with real lives and real people's money. County Manager report.
Chairman Gould, board members, no report this morning.
Thank you, sir. Call to the public. Oop, hang on. Approve the minutes of February 22nd, 2022 Board of Supervisor meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Call to the public. The following item, yep, call to the public. Man, I'm out of kilter today. Tanya Dowsend.
Good morning. My name is Tanya Dowsend. I'm from Mojave County. You can look up just about any local big name company, like where you buy your gas, groceries, clothes, hardware, even pet supplies, or where you do your banking, just about anything, and you'll find diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. These programs are structured to teach and evangelize. Diversity, equity, inclusion is now in the government of the state of Arizona in the Department of Education, and it's attempting to creep into Mojave County. Equity is defined as giving people what they need to enjoy a full, healthy life. It's unequal distribution to attain equitable outcomes, whatever that means. President Biden's executive order on advancing racial equality, or equity, not equality, racial equity has given Marxists a generational opportunity to bring the full force of the federal government to work for redistribution of wealth. This resource guide from Race Forward, a link I was given from the Social Justice Racial Equity Work Group, explains how to organize and build capacity at the federal level. It focuses on organizing strategies and structures and appears to be the Marxist game plan to fundamentally transform our government. This book wants acknowledgement of historical harm done by federal agencies and wants direct funding of organizations for racial justice. That sounds to me like reparations. They talk about compensating leaders and organizations who they feel have been wronged. That sounds like more reparations. They're using sharp partnerships between elected officials and government and community activists to manage and accelerate the change process by changing policies, practices, and procedures. They openly admit their goal is to transform agencies and the whole of the federal government. They are cultivating congressional champions for their cause. They're forming agency-specific racial equity core teams to coordinate the implementation of racial equity plan across agencies. There already appears to be at least one equity core team in Mojave County. The racial justice warriors are building network structures across the whole of the federal government with the intent of long-term institutional change. They want to grow their agency leadership and support its capacity through new mandates, funding, partnerships, communication, and addressing resistance. They are prepared for backlash, and they have a plan for you if you don't play along. Their plan includes propaganda campaigns, indoctrination, re-education, and if that doesn't work, replacement. Marxism invariably leads to violence and unrest. We can't let Marxism replace our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Nan Nicole.
Good morning, Chairman Gould and all the supervisors and the audience. My name is Nan Nickel. I live in Fort Mojave. I'm here today to also speak to a similar subject that Tanya just covered, but I'm going to take a little bit different stance. There's a letter of information I pulled up. It's called the Arizona Balance of State Continuum of Care Parameters for Local Continuums to End Homelessness. And the reason I have this is because many of the contracts that are being signed by our supervisors have language in them that comes from this group. And again, it refers to social justice, equity, and also, I wasn't able to find a lot about it, but it's called cultural compliance. I know at least two people up there that know all about this, and they know none of this is constitutional. I don't know about the others. But we, the people, have the political power. Our Constitution says we have it, but we can't govern. So we elect people like our county supervisors to represent us. This has been ever since we had a Constitution. So I kind of feel like we've been left out of the loop. Why do we have to go spend hours of our own time digging through paperwork, reading contracts, having to consult with others? I had my family here for the weekend, and I hardly had any time to spend with them because I had to research all this. And you know why I do it? Because somebody has to. Somebody has to. And there's lots of somebodies out there. And I just want people to know that if they want to know what the problem is, they need to know about Agenda 21. And anyone who's here today, I have plenty of these to hand out if you wish one. I'd be glad to give it to you. Also, the World Economic Forum, and also the Great Reset. And all this simply means is all of us will lose all our rights, we'll have no way to elect anybody, we'll work with bureaucracies, and we all know what that means, if we continue to go down this road. And every one of you up there that signed onto these contracts to get $7,000 here, $35,000 there, $8.5 million there, are signing on to these things. And it's very plainly spelled out in the contract and the attachment. So that is what I wanted to bring up today. And I know that by shining a light on things, that brings people into action, and I hope this will, and I hope that includes the supervisors. Please do not usurp what you're supposed to be doing. I'm glad you're going to all these meetings, but as you're going there, are you looking for things that'll protect your people? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Chris Rodarty.
Chris Rodarty, Kingman, Truth will ultimately prevail where pains is taken to bring it to light. These words, penned by George Washington in 1794, give me the strength and tenacity to show up here every 2 weeks to uncover and expose the lawlessness and corruption seeping into our own backyards. We see the unconstitutional brazen destruction of our unalienable rights on display in Washington, D.C. every minute of every day. Yet we ignore or even refuse to see it taking hold in our own neighborhoods. We certainly got a glimpse of it during the Wuhan flu pandemic, with small businesses being destroyed or left hanging by a thread by the very government officials sworn to uphold and defend the constitutions of the United States and Arizona. Public servants charged with protecting our rights deviously set out to illegally mask citizens' faces while muzzling school children and forcing untested inoculations, all in the name of public health and safety. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the insanity never stops and is exponentially spreading like an inoperable, cancerous tumor. You see it everywhere in public schools, professional associations, universities, and our own local governments. Catchphrases like social justice, racial equity, cultural competence, among others, are leaching into bureaucratic doublespeak, carefully, craftily buried deep within the agendas presented by our own, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm just by our own Mojave County Board of Supervisors. Seemingly, the hope is the citizens will ignore or trust the people they elected to study and sort it out for the good of all. Elected office holders with little or no regard for the truth, smugly and condescendingly patting us on the head with a nothing to see here attitude would likely vote to blithely accept blood money from the state. I trust no one on this board is that negligent or void of character. Please keep the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness we have been so graciously granted by our Creator in mind as you recommend, discuss, and vote on the agenda today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The consent agenda, the following items listed under... Oh. Jennifer Esposito.
Thank you, Jennifer Esposito, Kingman. At last month's meeting, Supervisor Angus put an item on the agenda to discuss creating a list of organizations that county departments had joined because they may or may not reflect the position of this board. And before I was so rudely interrupted by the supervisor who's not here today, I was trying to point out that at one time, this board had entertained the idea of creating a social media policy that was given to staff. It fell into a black hole and it never happened. Well, I don't want to see this idea of creating a list fall into a black hole as well, because there was no action to set a timeline for how long it would take to create that list. And I would hate to find out somewhere down the road that maybe our building department belongs to some Agenda 2030 group we don't know about. But more importantly, it's very important to have a social media policy because, as you guys all are very aware, Wilma Jean got everybody into some trouble, and you guys decided to defend her actions on her personal social media page at taxpayer expense when I didn't sue her as a county employee. And then the Arizona Court of Appeals determined that indeed what she was doing on her personal social media was the act of a county employee, making the county liable for her actions and therefore your actions as well going forward. And my other point was that the county Department of Public Health, was posting items from an organization with pretty radical policies regarding, as they have said, equity, and other things. And it's my understanding that the courts, that department, and the sheriffs are the only ones that have social media policies. Well, the problem with that is when it regards the health department, and this is why I'm strongly advocating that you remove the Facebook page for the health department and just let them use the website, is because amongst other things, Facebook uses factcheck.org, which is tied to a public policy center at, I believe it's the University of Pennsylvania, which also funds President Biden's think tank and has contracts with BioNTech and gets paid for vaccine sales and FDA approvals. There's a huge conflict of interest with this university and factcheck.org, which means that only one position can arguably be put on the Facebook page for the Department of Public Health, because even if the department was instructed to put up alternative things, Facebook would take it down. It is time to take down that Facebook page and just take the toys away from the retard. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Recently, 45,000 rapid tests for COVID were recalled because they had false positives. You already know the PCR test doesn't test for it. All the data is false. Take it down. The time has come. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The following items listed under consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion of said items unless a board member requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Supervisor Bishop, do you have anything you'd like to remove?
No.
Supervisor Angus?
13 and 27.
Supervisor Johnson?
Nothing today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Nothing this morning, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the consent agenda, less items 13 and 27.
So moved.
Second.
You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it, so ordered. Item 13.
Chairman Gould, I took this off. It was requested. I think we have some people signed up to speak to it.
Chris Rodarty.
Ms. Rodarty Kingman. As Thomas Jefferson once said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Such is the work of patriots everywhere, including here in Mojave County, Arizona. Today, I'm here to urge this board to vote against adoption of Resolution 2022-046, approving contract 521-22, which provides $7,000 in Arizona state funds that come with a myriad bundle of strings attached and hoops to jump. In studying the 83 pages attached to the item, I discovered rules with which the county must comply, including staff instruction in areas of Marxist-inspired social justice, racial equity, and cultural competency, the results of which must be reported to the state as required. The lists go on, the detail of which I cannot possibly cover in under 3 minutes at this podium. At the very least, I urge you to read the 83 pages and make your decision based on what is constitutionally lawful, as you have sworn to do in your oath of office. It is critical for the future of our children and grandchildren and beyond that we uphold the laws of the land as brought forth legislatively, not by mandates, edicts, and rules slipped through under the tent in hopes that no one notices. Do your job, county supervisors. Vote no, and rest assured, we the people of Mojave County, Arizona, will be paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanya Dowsend.
Good morning. According to the Arizona Balance of State Continuum of Care Governance Charter Guidance for the LCEH Strategic Action Plan for 2022, quote, all individuals and families have a right to safe, affordable housing in healthy communities with access to a network of supportive services. Since when did housing, healthy communities, and supportive services become rights? Giving people housing and services is charity. Why does the government presume it could decide for me which charities I contribute to? The government doesn't have anything to give that it first hasn't taken from somebody else by force. I don't see any mention of due process or just compensation in this agenda item. Taking money from us to provide services for homeless is public use, and without due process or just compensation, it's a violation of the 5th and 14th Amendments. In order to receive this grant money, the county is required to comply with the Social Justice Racial Equity Initiative in the Schedule of Completion in Attachment B. Under the agreement, the county's LCEH is required to learn concepts of social justice, listen to presentations by the Social Justice Work Group, have discussions on social justice, racial equity, update the LCEH Government of Operations document to include commitment to ensure social justice and racial equity, and establish action items related to social justice for the 2022 LCEH Strategic Action Plan. I was sent a link by a member of the Social Justice Racial Equity Work Group where equity was defined as giving people what they need to enjoy full, healthy lives regardless of race. It linked to a document saying organizations and systems should target programs, resources, investments, and strategies to those groups of people who are left behind and to those who need them the most. That's straight out of Karl Marx, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. What training in the U.S. Constitution did the Social Justice Racial Equity Work Group and Arizona Balance of State Continuum Care of Governance have? Were they required to take an oath to uphold the Constitution? It sure doesn't seem like it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Smith, you want to come down and enlighten us on this?
Chairman Gould, members of the board, and my pleasure to answer any questions in regards to the Arizona, in regards to the continuum of care. The continuum of care is something that's been ongoing. The continuum of care is a group that works throughout Mojave County. The continuum of care is a group of local social service agencies. So what would those be? If you think of Cornerstone, if you think of Catholic Charities, these are all organizations that we currently work with. In regards to some of the other issues that you heard today in regards to equity and racial equity, I will just say, as the Director of Community Services, I look at equity as providing services to all residents of Mojave County with equal ability to receive those. So what does that mean? It means if we need to go up to Colorado City, we'll go up to Colorado City. If we need to go to Havasu, we'll work with Catholic Charities in Havasu. If we need to go to Bullhead and work with Susan from Catholic Charities, we'll do that. That's what equity is in my mind, and providing services to those in the community that need it. In regards to some of those other things that were addressed, many people are familiar with HUD, urban housing development. Most of these mandates and things that you've heard about have been ongoing through HUD for many years. And I'll answer any other questions the board may have.
Supervisor Angus?
One of the speakers spoke about reporting. What are the reporting requirements? Have you done that in the past?
We've been doing this since Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, we've been doing this since 2017, reporting these exact.
Okay, how much money would you say, all right, you've only been here, what, a couple of years? Over the last 5 years, have we given to the continuum of care for homelessness, things like that? How much money? Just a rough ballpark.
Supervisor Gould, Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, I know this contract is for $7,000. I believe it's about the same amount.
I mean, all together, all the community services, all the grants, how much money? Just out of the top of your head.
So our department is, I want to say, $15 million.
Right.
That includes workforce development as well as housing.
Okay. Is our homeless situation any better than it was 5 years ago?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, I could look at that and dig into that more.
I can tell you no, just from anecdotally seeing around. I mean, there are some sectors that are better. Addiction, we know about that. And as much as I am an advocate for that, I am uncomfortable with how much government is involved with nonprofits. And that's exactly what you just said. Catholic Charities, Cornerstone, these are nonprofits, some faith-based organizations. They should be kept separately. And if they do take grants, it shouldn't have to be overseen by government. So Chairman Gould, if I'm sure other people have something to say, I'd like to continue this so I can get more information before I feel comfortable to vote on it.
That's a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, did you want to put a time when you would like it to come back? Or just indefinitely?
30 days.
Okay.
Chairman Gould, I'll second for discussion.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you. Mr. Smith? So the item says planning and training activities for community services department staff to work with the continuum of care. What is the scope of services for those planning and training activities? What are those exactly?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Lingenfelter, you can see through this packet of the different things that are required. And I couldn't go into great detail of all of those. I do have my housing manager here
What's the Reader's Digest version of it?
Okay, to keep it short and simple. So part of this is to make sure that we do the point in time count. The point in time count, we go throughout the county and make sure that we actually find the right amount of people that are homeless. To address Supervisor Angus's question, in regards to training, it's making sure that we're working with the different agencies and putting people into HMIS, which is the homeless management system, and then that way we can follow through with all of those things that are needed. Are there trainings in regards to equity? Yes. Are there trainings in regards to other things of that nature? Yes. But those are all HUD mandated. Those are all things that as a housing authority we would have to do, even if we weren't doing continuum of care. We would still have to do that to keep our Section 8 and all of the other social service programs that we have within community services.
Thank you. You know, I think most of the people that I was elected to represent, including myself, that we feel very strongly that, you know, we work very hard for our money. And if there's a charitable organization out there that is on our heart and that we feel that it compelled to donate directly to those organizations, and then that's our right to do that, right? Whether it be for homeless people or animals or the myriad of different charities and organizations that are out there, right? I don't feel comfortable with the county being the middleman in that. Why can't these organizations go out and get their own grants directly? I don't, without seeing some sort of a metric, as was indicated by Chairman Angus, that shows that what we're doing at the county is actually moving the needle in measurable ways, I mean, then I have a hard time supporting it. I don't think that as one of the speakers put it, and I agree that we're being forced to donate to some of these things that maybe, you know, that should be left to the private household to decide those things, what they want to donate to, what's important to them. So I don't really support this. I mean, I'll vote to continue it, but I just don't feel comfortable with. I think it should be, if there's donations, it should go right to the organization from either the individual households themselves. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop wanted in on the discussion.
Thank you. And Supervisor Angus, in response to your comment about homeless numbers, I can only speak for my work with the Kingman Area Food Bank, and the number of homeless people that are coming to the food bank requesting assistance has increased. And I know a lot of people are homeless, they're living in their cars or with family and things. So I can tell you in District 1, those numbers have gone up based on that experience alone. And then community services, Mike, could you explain what community services do? I mean, isn't this what you do is to help our residents, our citizens? Can you kind of give us an overview of your department, and hopefully we're not wanting to do away with your department. So if you could just remind us what it is that you do, please.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Bishop, thank you for that opportunity. So when you think of community services, what is community service? Community service is a part of the county that looks to improve and enhance the people's lives within Mojave County. What does that mean? Well, we have workforce in our department. What does that mean? Workforce. We bring everyone in, no matter what time of life they're at, where their struggles are, and provide them an opportunity to better increase their opportunity in life, whatever they may do, right? Now you turn to the housing side, right? Supportive services and the other social part. When you look at the housing, we have 549 vouchers that we can provide people, right? And when you think of that, these are some of the people that are hit the hardest, that would be on the street and they would be homeless because of a disability or some it could be a mental health issue that doesn't allow them to fulfill their needs. So part of community services is to make sure that we're working with our local social service agencies. When I came on board a little over 16 months ago, and we talked to the COC really had no clear direction. What do I mean by that? The COC did not have any measurable outcomes. They weren't tracking certain data. These things were not being produced. One of the first things that I asked them to do was to let's, as a group, circle back and what is the meaning of the COC? We wrote a mission statement. We followed through with those action items. We tracked how many people are doing referrals. What is the mental health status of the people that we're doing the referrals for? Where are we referring people to? How can we work better? Not only that, but I went from just myself running as the chair to bringing on 2 co-chairs, which would be Melanie Windector from Cornerstone, as well as Susan Kokonich from Catholic Charities. Working with these agencies, I felt that we could, within Mojave County, provide people an opportunity and education on resources within the county as well as the state so that they could better improve their life and have an opportunity. Is it meant for a free opportunity? No. There's requirements. There's things that they need to do. There's ways that they have to go through that. But when you think of community services, in a nutshell, that's a little bit about community services. And then when you think about the vets, right? And what are we doing in community services? So it goes even a step further. Look at what we did for Cornerstone and the 49 vets that I'm not Cornerstone. Look what we did at KVV, King Revenant Villas. That was done through community services. We provided brand new housing for 49 vets to have that opportunity. We've worked with our veteran services throughout the 16 months that I've been here to sit on those committees, to reach out to those vets, to provide those vets with opportunity either through workforce or through housing. The new initiatives that we have from supervisors that are here today that want to do directly in regards to housing, right? Affordable housing, it all goes back, it all ties together for community services. So when you think of community services, at the end of the day, what are we trying to provide? Are we trying to provide just regular services or free handouts to the community? That's not what community service is. Community service is to better enhance the lives of Mojave County all across the board, working with private developers, community members, social service agencies, and other agencies to make sure that at the end of the day, everybody that needs resources, whatever those resources may be or direction they may be, either from mental health, from food insecurities, anything of that nature, that they have that opportunity and that they can live out their best life. That would be my view of community services, Supervisor Bishop.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And, I just wanted to remind everybody that Mojave County has a lot of different resources to our residents, and this is just one of many that we provide. And a reminder that any of us and our families could become homeless at any time based on financial reasons, health reasons, or just circumstances. So I just spent 2 days in Tennessee with my daughter, and she belongs to an outreach group that feeds and clothes the homeless people. So it kind of touches my heart a little bit closer because I spent 2 days in just outside of Nashville, Tennessee with people who were seriously homeless. Not that it's the same in Arizona or in Mojave County, but it's a problem, and it's a problem that probably COVID has brought to the forefront and made us all more aware of it. So thank you, Michael.
Supervisor Johnson, do you have any comments, questions?
None, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Angus?
Yeah, there's no doubt vouchers, I know vouchers are good. I know nonprofits, all the money that goes through the government, percentage of it are taken for employees, employee benefits. It grows government. That's the issue, not what it's meant for. I believe if you took out all of that, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I'm saying if you take out all of that and left more money in people's pockets to give it to the charities of their choice, things would get done quicker and better. It always does. And the more we do this, if it was working, I would say, well, great. But it's not. You know it's not. I know it's not. You know it's not. We have more homelessness, more addiction, more mental health crisis than we ever have before. And every time we put money into it, it goes to administration. Everybody takes their cut. If all of this money went to the end users, the people who really do need it, I think it would be, we'd see a lot less of it. And some of it we can't fix. We know that. So I'm going to reinstate. I want to see this, and not just about this. I want to see how it's all connected. Now that some constituents brought it up, and now I'm very curious of how it's all connected, and maybe we can have a full report in 30 days and just see. And I'd like some results, some outcomes of what all the money that we're getting in, and what are the outcomes that we're seeing. That's all.
Supervisor Lingenfelter?
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Michael, I think where my frustration comes is something that Supervisor Angus just mentioned. It's the fact of, if we've been doing these programs, these services for so many years, and they're still going up, well, there's that old adage where it's impossible to manage what you don't measure. I don't see a lot of metrics to say, here's what we're going to try. Here are the metrics to measure that. Here are the outcomes of that. And based on that, here are the course corrections we need to have in order to continue to make sure that we're successful, right? Because these are public dollars that these programs and services are funded with, right? I haven't seen, I've only been on the board for a little over a year, but I haven't seen a lot of metrics on these programs. And you talk about the housing situation. Everybody knows what the housing situation is here. Havasu, median home price over $400,000. I brought it up last year. And you said that we were going to be moving forward with a housing study. Mojave County, at our size, 220,000 people, mid-sized county, we don't have a housing study. That's incredible to me. That should be priority number one on the housing side. So I'm just looking for, and I think the citizens are looking for, if we're going to be investing public dollars into these things, we got to have metrics to at least measure it, impact.
Supervisor Gould, Chairman Gould. Supervisor Lingenfelter, Supervisor Angus, thank you for the opportunity. I will say that I've been here for a little over 16 months. I have been doing metrics with all my departments. I'd be happy and pleased to share those metrics with you.
So. Yes.
Those are different things that where I come from, if you don't have a metric, if you don't have an outcome, you can't just do it because it feels good. That doesn't qualify in the world that I currently work in. In regards to the situation that we're at right now, in regards to the programs and the funding that we receive, this is the state of the union. This is the state where we're at, right? What I mean by that is I don't have control over that. I've been put in charge of community services to lead that department. That's what I'm trying to do, to make sure that we have all the things in place. In regards to housing study, we're in the process of finishing that up in regards to what it looks like, so we can send that out for RFP in the very near future. So that is being taken care of and being addressed. In regards to local businesses and housing situations, we are working with local contractors when we find out that individual units are going from LIHTC or from affordable housing to maybe changing hands to more raising of rents and doing other things. We're doing things to mitigate that, working with landlords to make sure that they have those informations. So we're working with different landlords to make sure that we can address the housing issue. It's just not something that we're turning a blind eye to. It's definitely something that we're looking to do. In regards to my department, if you look at the way they've come together as of the past, I would say 6 months, working hand in hand with referrals from one side of the house to the other, it's really enlightening to see, to have that opportunity. It's my understanding that those things weren't happening prior to, in regards to working together. Also, you'll see in workforce, when you talk about outcomes and development, I'm actually working with workforce right now to develop a system-wide referral system so that no matter where we're working within the county, if we do a referral to another agency, we know that referral happened. If we did a referral to another agency, we know the outcome of that referral. Those are the things that matter. So to your point, in regards to outcomes, I totally believe in that, and that is where the department is heading, and you'll see more data as it goes forward. I can say in regards to the homeless situation, there are many factors that factor into that, right? So let's go back to Havasu and look at that. I mean, I had a lady that came to us, it was 6 months ago. She came to us, she's been living in a motorhome in Havasu. She's paying $700 a month rent. The landlord came, she'd been there almost well over a decade, all right? Landlord came to her and said, we're raising your rent to $1,800. Pay it or you have to leave. She needed support, she needed services, right? What does that mean? She needed help finding other places that she may live. She was a senior. She didn't have the ability to get on a computer, do all those different things. So we provided that support. So those are the things when you think of community services that we're doing to help the community as well. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, so let me get the cash flow straight in my own mind. So this is federal taxpayer dollars that the federal government gives to the state government to administer, and then the state government gives it to the county to administer, and then we give it to the continuum of care to plan something with. Is that the gist of it?
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, it's a $7,000 grant. How much does it cost the federal government, the state government, the county government, and the continuum of care to administer this $7,000 grant?
Good question, Chairman John. Gold.
To me, it looks like this stuff gets gobbled up by the bureaucracy before it ever helps anybody get a room for the night. I'm concerned about so on the application, and this is a state form, they want you to list the LCEH social justice and racial equity representative on the form. I'm curious where this term came from. Does the continuum of care have a social justice representative?
Chairman Gould, I would have to look into that for sure. But if it's in the contract of the requirements, that would be something that we would have to do if it's there. I believe our housing manager, our newly appointed housing manager is that person, but I don't want to speak out of turn on that.
So does the county have a social justice and racial equity representative?
Chairman Gould, I believe Nate Covington is that person for us. But what does that mean and how does that play out? I couldn't speak on the duties of what's represented within that. That's not one of the things that I've been involved in with that. But if you wanted, I could provide that answer to you.
We might want to include this information when it comes back, when the item comes back. I'm just curious how this got embedded into these government forms, because to me, this is a Marxist idea. You can't guarantee outcomes. We want to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity, but we cannot guarantee equal outcome. And that's really what equity means, is equal outcome. I know people want to redefine words. Words mean things, folks. That you don't get to redefine words the way that you want them to be defined. They have a definite meaning. That's why you have we used to have dictionaries, but now we do it on the internet so they can change it at a moment's notice. But words mean things, folks. To me, this just looks like a lot of bureaucratic work for a $7,000 grant that then if it makes it through that whole process, it's just going to get gobbled up by the COC as they use for planning what they're going to do. But you might include that stuff when the social justice warrior position, when it comes back, so we'll know where that came from. And I'm curious where that term even came from. I'm surprised I find it on a government form. I hear it on talk radio all the time, and I see it on YouTube, but didn't think it would be embedded in a government form. But any further discussion on this matter? No, we got a motion on the floor. You've heard that. You want to restate your motion?
I make a motion that we continue this for 30 days, at which time community service will come back with a report, including the issues that we have brought up this morning.
I'll renew my second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it, so ordered. Item 27.
Well, it seems to be a theme today. On item 27 is the list of items that the county manager can sign on. It's 10,000 to 50,000. And on number 2 is something called My Sidewalk. And it's awarded in the amount of $12,245 for a 1-year service agreement on behalf of the Public Health Department. So before you get started, so I looked it up. And it was a very interesting website. So as far as I can tell, My Sidewalk is a private company that supplies software for data collection, but which seems like a pretty innocuous, not political, it's data. Data is data, right? It is or it isn't. Well, as I went through this website, I learned some very interesting things. So on one of them, it says, well, first of all, it's data, the Democratic, what's the word? Democratic,
Demographics?
oh my God.
Demographics?
No. Democracy of data. Okay. Democratizing, that's the word. Thank you, my early Alzheimer's. Democratizing data. That's what it said, democratizing data. So does anybody know, where's Denise? Oh, can anyone explain to me what that even means? Democratizing data.
So just to address this report, this is actually the report of what the procurement director can sign. And my understanding is that this is something that's been in place for a little while, and we do it year to year. So my review from a procurement standpoint was, does it fit within our procurement code? Does it meet the objectives of the health department? Which is why, yes, Denise is prepared to speak on the purpose.
Yes.
And that's why I'll step down and I'll answer any other questions.
No, you did your job perfectly.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you.
Okay, so first of all, what is democratizing? I'm saying it over and over so I don't forget it. Data mean?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, I didn't look at that terminology, honestly. Our idea and our plan and our purpose for this particular webpage is to provide data, community level, social and health, community-driven, community-level data to the public. This talks about some of the health information and some of the stats that come out of our community health assessment. And really, the purpose of it is to be transparent to the public about where we are in terms of the health of our community, and also to use by other nonprofits, faith-based groups in any of their grant applications, and moving forward with looking at some of the gaps in our community and using that data to drive grant proposals or proposals to look for funding to try to address those gaps if they so wish.
What have we been doing before? I mean, we've been getting grants, we've been putting out information. You can go to our website, you can go to the hub for COVID. There's data everywhere. Why this one?
This particular site brings it all to one place. So people don't have to go to CDC, people don't have to go to HUD, people don't have to go to the state, people don't have to go to these different sites.
Okay, so if that's the case and it's just gathering data, why does it have such a leftist point of view? So, for example, get ready to break the cycle of poverty. Getting out of poverty is not just a matter of pulling ourselves up by our shirt sleeves and putting in the work. It takes major investments of time and money. When we struggle to meet our immediate daily needs for food and shelter, we push aside non-immediate concerns. It goes on. With affordable, we are not given all the same chance to make healthy choices. When inequities like this exist, there's that word again, we've heard it all morning, it's in every part of our world now. With affordable medical care, education, and fair wages, we can lift each other out of poverty and end income inequities. How does a program that gathers data do that? I mean, what will happen to this data? So basically what you're saying is you need this data to get money, and through money from the government, we will all have, nirvana. We will live in, this great world where no one hurts and no one has to live worse than somebody else. And that goes back to, the first issue that we talked about this morning. They are all connected. I don't understand. This is the first time, is this a renewal or is
It
this
is.
something? It's a renewal?
This is actually, we've had a 3-year contract with this company, and this is year 4, to extend it to year 4. And we've actually been looking at other opportunities to do this, but the time and resource it would take us to bring it in-house would actually cost us more. We do have an ability to tailor this language, and we can certainly work with the contractor to define these categories maybe slightly differently so they're more appealing.
Okay, so just so the people watching and those in the audience know, another thing was called vaccine hesitancy. Imagine waking up one morning after years of serving the public dutifully to find protesters outside your house calling you a traitor, a despot, a fascist, or worse. Imagine needing armed escorts to walk you to your car after work or seeing your children's personal information splashed across the internet by hackers. Imagine receiving death threats every day, looking over your shoulder when you are in the grocery shopping, worried that you'll have to leave your full cart of groceries again because an anti-mask, anti-vaccine fellow shopper chose that day to tell you how evil they think you are. Sounds like every day in the life of a Republican in Washington, doesn't it? And now imagine doing all this while still trying to control a global pandemic and keep your residents from dying. Public health is fighting a nearly impossible situation. It's more, but just this last sentence. Misinformation and fear are contagious. Hesitancy about the vaccine created a window for variants to thrive. Not true, but not all hesitancy is created equal. Not even hesitancy can be equal. We have to make that an inequity. While some distrust the government, others have a shaken belief in the pharmaceutical industry. History shows us that some of these suspicions are well-founded, but new data reinforces the efficacy of vaccines. That's where I have a problem. So it seems to me that the data is being massaged to get the outcomes that certain agencies need, and this has no place in government. Zero. But it's so there. You all know, you heard it this morning. It's everywhere. It's just been in our fabric now of society. And I just wanted to say, and this is just a small, little incy-bincy part of it, that when we wake up and we say to ourselves, how did this all happen? Where were we? This is how it happened. Nonprofits that are funded by government money, this is how it happened, and it's happening under our noses. And I don't know how we stop it. I really don't. But I saw this, and it just twerked me. We sought to find a better, more affordable way to understand the nuances of vaccine hesitancy. What that sounds to me is they're trying to identify the people, and then, we'll take care of them. That's what it sounds like to me through my point of view. I know through your point of view, it's probably something different. But why at this moment is this $12,000 so necessary? We've been getting information. When you sign I'd like to see, did we have the contract of this? I'd like to see the contract of this to see what it says. Can we get that too? Maybe we can continue this for 30 days as well and have a whole event of this kind of stuff in 30 days. I mean, I didn't mean for it to go this way, but it just seems that our constituents are concerned. And these are people who come all the time. They follow everything. I know these ladies. I know all of them, and they spend so much time. And of course, yes, it is their point of view, but it's a point of view that I think we need to really look at. And, I know I've been on my soapbox, and I'm sorry for that, but it's just these little things that make a big whole mess. That's it. Thank you.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, as I mentioned, we can work with the contractor as well. And I'm not saying we can't bring this back in 30 days. Obviously, we will work with the will of the board here. But we have the ability to work with the contractor. And we can define the language that exists on this particular webpage, and we can certainly do so.
When you say work with the contractor,
work with my sidewalk.
Work with my sidewalk. So when you get this program, are you working with them? It's on their...
It's on their platform.
It's
on their platform.
There you go.
Right, correct.
There you go.
It's not on ours.
Thank you.
That's the reason it would take us quite a bit of resources.
So they're getting all our information too,
ourselves.
And they're sharing our information everywhere.
Correct.
All right. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
I just wanted to provide a point of clarification, Chairman Gould and Supervisor Angus. This particular software is a software program, and they get their information from Arizona Department of Health Services. They get it from demographic data that's collected during census tract data collection. We go in there, we pull whatever fits Mojave County per our accreditation guidelines and the accreditation items that we need to highlight. So we also use it for our CHA and CHIP data. So we will choose those components that fit our CHA and CHIP data and put it onto the Mojave County My Sidewalk site. So we don't do all of it. We don't do half of what's available to us. And we can go in and edit the pages to ensure that the wording fits Mojave County.
Any other questions? Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Melissa, and the county has the option to opt out of sharing any data. I mean, much like if you have an app on your phone and it says, do you want to share your data or not? Can we click yes or no?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Lingenfelter, we share no data with them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Supervisor Angus.
How can it be on their platform and not being shared?
They pull the data on our behalf. So as I stated with the Arizona Department of Health Services data that's available to them, the census tract data, they collect the data and then we utilize that. We do not have the staff available. It would take several additional staff members to get the data that they're able to pull.
And this information is used by, you say, nonprofits to get more money from the government.
It can be used.
What else would it be used for?
Prior to us renewing renewing our subscription, we did pull the entities that we work with within the community, all 4 main communities, and our staff to ensure that was being utilized before we renewed the subscription.
Okay, I still want to see the contract, and my motion is to continue this and be brought into our other subject that we're going to have a presentation in 30 days.
I'll second.
Heard that motion, second. Any further discussion?
Can I clarify the item that's before the board, though?
Sure.
So this item is just accepting my report of activity that we've already taken. If the board directs us to maybe look into terminating the contract or something like that, that would be the action that's taken. So this is a report of agreements that have been signed by me under the delegated authority of the board and commitments that we've already made. So I just want to make that clear that this is not a decision whether or not to use it. We have moved forward and the health department is currently using that subscription.
I have one more question. Is this being paid by a grant or by county money?
That is this being paid by grant funding or by county funds? Grant funding. But I can absolutely get you a copy of
I
the agreement.
appreciate it. And
do you want me to bring it back to this board, or would you just like me to email it to the board members?
I want it to be back in a presentation. When we do our presentation with community services, it seems like it's all the same, issue.
So if you would like, we can resubmit this report for approval of the board, and we'll include this as additional backup. We normally don't include all the contracts. We include the purchase orders in a summary, but for this particular one, I can include the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Chairman Gould, I have a question.
Supervisor Bishop.
Is the motion to not approve this monthly report or just this one section of it?
I believe the motion would not approve the report.
Not the,
Would continue the report.
Then I need to amend that. Just for this item, which is item 2 on the report, to continue it for 30 days to be brought back as part of a presentation with the community services.
Can we approve it but that item?
That was what I was going to suggest, because continuing it kind of continues the whole item. like when you say continued, I have to bring back the item as written. So it would either be you could continue this with the exception of item 2 and request staff to bring back a new item for item 2, or because if we just continue the item, nothing gets approved.
Okay, as I understand it, it's already been paid, right? We're just ratifying what you've already done. So it's done. So we might as well just...
Yes, the work's already done, but there's no problem for us administratively delaying the approval of these reports. So if you want to continue the full item for additional backup, we can do that.
So when you say that, there are 7 items, how many items are on this report?
Oh gosh, there's a ton. It's 2 months worth of activity.
Okay.
And but it really is just to bring it before the board. So the board is aware of the work that the procurement department is doing and agreements that I have signed on your behalf. Administratively, it will not impact us if we delay this to another meeting where I can get you more backup.
All right, so let's just delay this 30 days. That's still okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Or the motion, same motion?
Yeah.
Got a second?
I was a second. Just Chairman Gould, if I might ask, just a point of clarification, Jenny. Deferring the approval of the report doesn't do anything to the agreements that are contained within that report, right? It's just information of reports or contracts that have already been executed. So it doesn't hurt anybody.
No, Chairman Gold, Supervisor Lingenfelter, no, it doesn't hurt anybody. We just needed to be clear that if a continued item, we can't just pull one part of that out due to it having to come back written as is once it's continued.
Yeah. And I did second that item.
You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. You guys appear to have it. Do have it, so ordered. Item 83, Supervisor Lingenfelter, is that yours?
I think it's 38, Mr. Chairman.
I read it backwards. Did I say 38 when we had the motion?
It's Director Walsh.
Hopefully there's no 83 on there anyway, so.
I believe 38 is Director Walsh.
Chairman Gould, Supervisors. Item 38 is a discussion, possible action regarding the boards of adjustments. The zoning ordinance currently allows for 1 board of adjustment per each district. What this item is requesting is that the board direct staff to look at this and instead of having 1 board of adjustment for each district, revise that down to 1 board of adjustment with that would oversee all of the variances requested throughout the county. So some of the reasoning for this, populating 5 different boards of adjustments requires quite a bit of volunteer time from county folks, as well as requires some time on the supervisor staff in populating those various boards. We've had some difficulties in some of the districts in trying to find sufficient people to populate those boards. Basically, a board of adjustment, what the purpose of a board of adjustment is in situations where an applicant wants to develop their property, but in many cases, the terrain doesn't allow for meeting the exact requirements of the zoning ordinance. They can request a variance, and then the Board of Adjustments would hear that variance and determine whether or not the conditions of that property warrant a variance. By having 5 separate boards of adjustments, that requires anywhere between 15 on up to 25 members to serve on those various boards. So this would take that number down to 5. It would provide for more consistency across the county as well in determining these variances. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Bishop.
Tim, how many members do we have for each district currently that are?
It's a great question. Currently, active board members, and and I won't go through district by district, but I believe we've got that are, let's see, I'd say we're sitting, the possibility of we should have at least 15. There'd be at least 3 per district in order to fill those. Right now, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Right now, I've got about 10 that are currently active in those that have not expired. I guess their appointments have not expired. So right now, I've got basically two districts that are full, that have at least the 3 to be able to hold a meeting. If we receive a variance for any of those districts that do not have a full board at this time, we are delayed in trying to find applicants that could fill those seats in order to hear those cases.
Okay. I understand the problem, and I think this is a really good idea, and I will vote to support this, but I'm just curious, out of these 10 members that are current, do we keep them until their term expires, or do we pick and choose each district then would confirm which one they want to keep on and tell the other 2 that your service has been appreciated and
Ideally, if approved, yeah, we would go to one member per each district, and then the supervisor over that district would be able to determine who they'd like to have serve on that board.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Walsh? Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to verify, members will be able to appear via phone.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson, yes, we currently have that ability and are using it for our Planning and Zoning Commission. We would also offer that opportunity to the Boards of Adjustment as well.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Bishop.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. You guys appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Item 39.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
If I may, this item is a 2-part item. I'm going to be recommending that the first part, A, is continued till the first meeting in April. And I'm going to be asking that this board consider the second part of that item today, B, which is rescinding the condition in Board of Supervisors Resolution 2021-206 that the developer of a site of approximately 21.07 acres in size on assessor's parcel number 402-30-026 provide service treatment of the 1.2 mile stretch for the current 24-foot width of Virgin Acres Boulevard. So,
Do you want to make a motion to,
if it would be all right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue portion A. As part of that, I see Kathy Tackett Hicks up in the audience. She's the owner's representative guy and the travel center. If you want to come down and say any words about that, we can. I just want to say on the record that I appreciate Guy and the travel center, and also Kathy, Steve, Tyler, and Sam. We have, I believe, a negotiated agreement that's going to take care of that 1.2 miles of roadway. It's not quite ready yet, and we'll bring it to the board next month. But is there anything that you want to say about that?
Honorable Chairman, Supervisors, my name is Kathy Tackett Hicks, and I did want to extend a thank you to you and staff, certainly Sam and Steve, with coming up with a creative idea to get all of the parties in agreement. I'm very pleased that we're removing that provision in the original rezone approval. I think that was really important to get accomplished. The developer and the team is real excited to get the project done. This is a way to move it forward. We are really pleased to be working with you in this project. We're working with ADOT right now, moving the project forward, and so I thank you for that.
Great. Yeah, it's a real win-win. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone portion A of item 39 to our first meeting in April.
Heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Supervisor Bishop.
Chairman Gold, I have a question about A, and that is, I know it's being continued to April, but don't we need to discuss and vote on whether or not we want to bring this road into county maintenance and maybe declare it a county highway if we're going to be spending funds on it?
I mean, we can have that conversation today, or we can have that conversation in a couple of weeks. It doesn't matter to me.
But I think it does have to occur, does it not? I mean, we just can't.
Well, as I understand it, and Steve, you can talk about this. I mean, this is not, portion A is not about bringing it into the county road maintenance system as I understand it right now. It was just to bring the condition of the surface of this 1.2 miles up to standard. Steve, you want to, what did I miss?
Mr. Letoski.
Good morning, Chairman Gould, Supervisor Bishop, Supervisor Lingenfelter. Good question. The source of funding under the proposed agreement is non-HERF. So as a result, there is opportunity to spend non-HERF funds and even engage in a reimbursement type capacity, public works forces to perform work on roadways currently not maintained by the county without them roadways being designated a county highway. If the source of funds were HERF, were specific to public works, then yes, the board would have to consider and actually establish this road as a county highway. With regard to the maintenance status, that would be an optional pursuit, possibly even by the public through a future petition for us to reassess and make a recommendation to the board to bring the roadway into the road maintenance system. However, this funding agreement does not currently contemplate or require the Board of Supervisors to consider that at this point.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So in the future, if this road becomes in need of maintenance, then the citizens would have to petition the county to bring it into our maintenance system so that we could provide the chip sealing or whatever is necessary in years to come.
Or a private entity could still perform that work on the road that's not maintained by the county. A very interesting, just to elaborate, a very close example to this was the cemetery access road in Beaver Dam. That was one where the board actually established that roadway as a county highway because we expended her funds to improve a very short stretch. I think it was less than a quarter mile from in that Beaver Dam area. But this would not involve her funds.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Letoski? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. So we're back to our motion.
I'll second the motion if it hasn't been.
I think it's already got us. It's got a second. You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. The second part of this motion, or this item rather, excuse me, would be the reconsideration of the condition set forth in Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2021-206, removing that condition. from the parcel, which is assessor's parcel number 402-30-026.
Looking for a second.
Oh, second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I think we do the reconsideration and then we come back and take away or add restrictions.
Okay.
Okay.
Chairman Gould, actually, the way that it's agendized is just to approve the rescission. It's not approved for a it's not agendized for a reconsideration, just the rescinding of it.
And that was the intent, is just to rescind.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
I'm just curious with the attorney, do we have to do a reconsideration before we can do a rescission?
Tyler.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Johnson, and as Ginny indicated, I think there's multiple ways that the board could have addressed this agenda item. One is reconsider, meaning let's go back to what was previously done and undo it, meaning make it as though it was never done. That would be reconsider. As it was agendized, it was just rescind, meaning we're acknowledging that it was done and what was voted, and we're undoing or we're canceling a portion of what was done. And so we're just adding a different vote. So as Supervisor Lingenfelter was speaking, I did hear him say reconsider. I think it was just speaking and not intending the word reconsider to be part of the motion, but more of rescinding the prior action. So can the board address it either of the two ways? Yes, certainly, as Supervisor Johnson is saying, it could be done that way. However, I do believe the approach taken by Supervisor Lingenfelter in this motion, in this agenda item, is also appropriate of just rescinding that portion of a prior resolution.
Supervisor Lingenfelter, I think we made a motion and approved a motion to reconsider, so we're in the reconsideration portion. So then you'd make your motion to rescind that condition, and we'll vote again.
Certainly, Chairman Gould, and I'll do that now. Motion to rescind the condition in Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2021-206.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. You have it, so ordered. Number 40. Let me get Luke up here to explain the situation. He'll do a better job than I will.
Good morning, Chairman Gould, Supervisors. So this motion, as I understand it, is to set a standard practice. There's a narrow portion of statute 42-18-303 section F that allows the board, when the county has foreclosed on a property, so it is tax deeded now in the name of the state of Arizona, this section of statute allows for the board outside of a public auction to accept a purchase offer from a property owner that owns property that is contiguous to the foreclosed piece of property. And there's certain criteria that have to be met. It has to be contiguous. It has to be unsuitable for residential purposes on its own, either due to the size or configuration of the parcel or due to local zoning. And so this would set about a standard practice, whereas if a property owner was to approach a supervisor or to approach the treasurer's office asking for information, asking for a recommendation of what they should offer to the board as a purchase price, that we would have just a standard answer for them. Is that a correct understanding of your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I had previously given some information to you where I was recommending, in line with what you had put in your item, to set that standard acceptable purchase amount at an amount equal to either the total delinquent amount owing, and that would include any taxes, interest, penalties. It would include the cost of foreclosure that the treasurer's office had incurred. So that is one option, or as your motion proposed, the assessor's full cash value for that piece of property. I think it's important to also make the motion include that whatever that minimum purchase amount is, if it's the assessor's full cash value, which I believe their minimum full cash value is $500, there could be circumstances where the treasurer's foreclosure costs may exceed $500. It hasn't happened yet as far as I'm aware of, but depending on how many parties with an interest in a parcel show up in a title report, we have certified mailings we're required to send to them. I looked back through our records from last year. We had one parcel where we had to mail out 14 different certified mailings. And so it bumped the foreclosure costs up from what our average is usually around $150 for a parcel. It bumped it up to above $300, still pretty far below that $500 threshold, but I could see in the future it's possible that we could exceed that. So whatever the motion is, if it's the lesser of the full amount owing or the assessor's full cash value, you should make sure to specify that it has to at a minimum cover the foreclosure costs, because that is dictated by statute.
Okay.
And I did just bring this with me. It kind of shows some of the language of statute as well as what we would recommend. So the bottom half of that page there, if you could zoom in. Can you zoom in on the bottom half of the page? I can just read it.
Why don't you just read it?
Sounds good, Chairman. So our recommendation would be that the board set the standard acceptable purchase amount at amount equal to 1, the total delinquent amount owing, including all taxes, interest, fees, penalties, and special assessments, or the assessor's full cash value, whichever is less. And either of the above options would have to, at a minimum, recover the costs that the county treasurer incurred to foreclose on the subject property. In addition to the lesser of the two options above, also include a $40 fee to cover recording the Board of Supervisors deed and mailing it to the new owner, and that any offer would be subject to full board approval.
So members, what the debate really is should we try to collect the back taxes also in this sale, or should we go ahead and sell that property at the full cash value plus the foreclosure costs and the paperwork cost to transfer? These are, like Luke said, they're small parcels of land. They're not suitable to build a house on them themselves, and they're attached, or they abut another person's piece of property. And if we come up with a standard way of doing it, then like Luke said, the Treasurer's Department can tell them, or we can tell them, this is what the board expects if you want to buy that piece of property. Otherwise, that thing is just going to sit there forever, accumulating costs, essentially, and never get sold back, put back into private hands where we can then, it can be used and then it can be on the tax rolls also. So that's really what it boils down to is, do we want to attempt to collect the back taxes, or do we want to just try to get full cash value plus those costs?
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, sir. A question for Tyler would be, can we make special consideration for one citizen over another? And what I mean by that is we're only doing this probably lowering a tax load if you own the land next to it, as opposed to somebody else saying, well, I'd like to buy that.
Mr. Chair and Supervisor Johnson, it broke up a little bit. What I understood of the question, and so please correct me if I missed something, was can we make special consideration of which contiguous property buys the parcel? Was that the question?
Kind of what I'm saying is, we are saying that if you're on the land next door, you can buy this property, depending how the board votes, cheaper. But another citizen who might want to buy the property would have to pay a different price?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Johnson, the ways in which the board can sell property are dictated by statute. As referenced in this agenda item, one of those is by auction. That is the approach that I think part of your question alludes to, is that you may have multiple property owners from anywhere essentially bidding on that sliver parcel. The legislature has also written into that statute that the board can choose to sell a piece of property to a contiguous property owner. And that would, as you're alluding to, exclude other potential buyers and potentially reduce a price of a parcel because it's not at auction. And so that's a process set by statute, and certainly this board has the authority to choose which of those two approaches it desires to pursue in selling any individual piece of property. I think this agenda item is specifically saying when we do choose that option to sell to the contiguous property, what is the process or what's the minimum bid? And I think that is what the Treasurer's Office has presented today.
Thank you. Would that mean that we would have to notify the other owners that abut the land?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Johnson, I am going back in my head through this statute. I don't know that that's the most effective. If you'd like to wait just a moment, and Luke may know it off the top of his head as well. I don't think there is a publication requirement for the contiguous property sale, is there?
Not as far as I'm aware of.
And that's not in my memory either, but I could certainly confirm with the statute and let the Supervisor Johnson and the board know.
And Supervisor Johnson, the statute 4218-303, Section F starts off saying the Board of Supervisors may sell real property in the county held by the state by tax deed to the owner of contiguous real property that is used for residential purposes, and the board may accept an offer by the contiguous owner to purchase the property if the following conditions apply, and that's the two conditions that I outlined previously. That statute, the very beginning of it, prior to Section F, is the same statute that gives the board the authority to sell at public auction any tax deeded properties. The interpretation of this Section F is really to address a pretty narrow set of circumstances. All the ones that we have seen, and I believe there's been 3 that have been brought before the board over the past 2 years or so. These were all issues where there was a development and the developer didn't do a great job of dividing up the property when they sold the homes that were built there. We had a couple of them that were down in Fort Mojave in the Los Lagos development, where those homes, on the backside of those homes is a man-made waterway, and the developer had left these tiny little slivers of property that essentially was the last 4 or 5 feet of somebody's backyard before it hit the waterway. And so those little sliver parcels had gone with taxes unpaid for years and years and years. They were selected to be tax deeded, to be foreclosed on, and now we're left with a situation where the homeowner was not aware of the fact that they had a separate parcel of property that was physically inside their backyard. They hadn't received tax bills because the owner of record was still the now defunct developer or a title company's trust. And so this piece of statute gives a remedy to those homeowners where they can say, well, I'm willing to pay the taxes on it going forward, or I'm willing to pay a certain price for it. Our advice the treasurer's office recommendation to any of those homeowners that we spoke with has been offer the board the full amount of everything that is owing on it because it's in the best interest of the county. But there's a lot of back and forth between the homeowner, the treasurer's office, and then we would tell the homeowner they need to approach the board, approach the supervisor whose district they reside in. And then there's generally some back and forth between our office and the supervisor's office. And so having a standard amount that we could say, this is what the board has said they'd be willing to accept, this is your path forward. We could agendize it, or we could just give them the amount and they can approach you.
Luke, in that situation, is there another abutting piece of property? The other side, was it backed up to a road or a wash or something like that, to where there was not two neighbors that were wanting to compete for that piece of property?
So in Los Lagos, I believe there were houses on either side of that property as well. So you'd basically have, 3 or more houses in a row. The homeowner who approached us has this sliver of property in their backyard. It's not in either of the adjacent homeowners' backyards. Does that answer your question?
I was trying to address Supervisor Johnson's concern, or what I perceived to be his concern, is if you had a piece of land that was between two homeowners' parcels, they might want to compete to the benefit of the county for that piece of property.
That could be possible, yes.
Under F, would that still be, we would still be able to take an offer without going to auction?
I believe that might be a question for the county attorney.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, yes, the county board of supervisors could take an offer from either property. As described, this does not require any advertisement or publication process. I'm just not very familiar with too many competing property owners arguing over who gets to pay the property taxes. So I don't know how often there would be a fight over, the board of supervisors accepting an offer on a parcel.
Chairman Gould?
Supervisor Angus.
So just to clarify, so right now, you said there's a sliver of land that goes down to the water.
This was an item, the situation I described was one that the board had already approved. This already happened. There's a couple of them right now. There's one in Kingman where the developer basically left a sliver of property that is the right side of somebody's driveway.
Okay.
There's another one where it's like their side yard. It's a corner lot, and it's basically the side yard that is, I guess, I don't think there's a sidewalk in that neighborhood. So it's basically, the homeowner has landscaped it with gravel, and I think there's a tree planted there, and there's a stop sign. Do
the homeowners know this as they're going in, or is it something that they're just sprung on? I mean, they've been maintaining it, I'm sure, and like you said, so they're kind of finding out after the fact that now they have to pay like this extra. I'm like, what kind of money are we talking about?
So the ones that I have seen, I believe the highest was down in Los Lagos, and I think it was $3,000 or $4,000. Most of them are more in the $1,500 range because they've been valued at that minimum full cash value by the assessor. But in order for us to foreclose on them, they have to have not paid taxes for roughly 7 years or more. Mm-hmm. And I believe that one in Los Lagos had been delinquent for much longer than the minimum 7 years.
And what did they end up doing? They ended up paying.
They paid, well, that was interesting because they approached the title company that had brokered their real estate transaction. That title company had been sold to another title company, but the title company actually honored the agreement and paid on behalf of the homeowner. A lot of, which shouldn't say a lot, but several of the other homeowners I've spoken to have had absolutely no luck with their title company, just because I guess of the amount of time that has passed. But it's kind of a situation where either the developer didn't do a good job dividing or then combining those parcels, The title company certainly didn't do a good job, do their due diligence and inform the homeowner when they were purchasing a property, like, hey, there's another parcel of property in your backyard or on your driveway. But I would also bring up the fact that for all the other properties that the county has foreclosed on that are held in the name of the state of Arizona, when we take them to auction, the board has set that minimum starting bid price at the cost that the treasurer's office incurred for foreclosure. And for most of them, it's in the $125 to $150 range, and you let the market decide what the price is. But this is a very narrow section of statute, and I believe it's intended just to solve a problem that these homeowners might have through no fault of their own. Every single one of them that I've spoken to wants to take ownership of it, wants to pay the taxes. This would just make a standard practice.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. First of all, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is a good thing. As long as human beings are involved, you're always going to have situations like this because people make errors. So I think that this policy is good. I don't know how much luck or success you'd have in getting all the back taxes. I think just getting full cash value and then getting it into the responsibility of somebody that's actually going to pay taxes is a good thing. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Chairman Gould, there's one other situation. I don't know how likely it is that this would occur, but the full cash value might, in certain situations, exceed the amount of taxes that are owed on that parcel. And at least with the section of statute that deals with public option, if the board sells a piece of property for more than what is owing on it for back taxes, the amount over what is owed actually has to be refunded to the prior owner. In the auction that just ended, I believe we have upwards of $300,000 that is going to have, the treasurer's office will cut checks to the former owners because they sold for more than what was owing on them. So just to be aware of that as well. That's why we suggested the lesser of the amount owing or the full cash value.
Okay. That was the wording. Further questions for Luke? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman Gold, I'll try to put it in the form of a motion.
Supervisor Bishop.
I make a motion that we approve this item for the total delinquent amount or the full cash value from the assessor's office, whichever is lesser, plus a $40 processing fee. Does that cover it?
I'm looking at Luke to see if...
As long as it covers the treasurer's foreclosure costs.
I'll add that, as long as it covers the assessor's foreclosure costs. I think we got it there.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. You have it. So ordered. Item 41.
Chairman Gould, this item was placed on the agenda where it was just because I didn't have a consent space, so you were it. However, this business owner is frequently late with requesting special events. So this time he is requesting a permanent change, which we are absolutely in support of so that it keeps him on track. So this is just a standard extension of premises and it'll be permanent. And then if you guys agree to it, it'll go to ADLLC and it'll be up to them to approve the change.
Thank you. It's the pleasure of the board.
Chairman Gould, I make a motion to approve item 41.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. You guys appear to have it. Do have it. It's ordered. Item 42. Ryan Esplin.
Good morning. I'm looking forward to a lengthy discussion today. That was a joke.
I got
Not
it.
very funny, but it was a joke. So what we have today, back in 2019, Mojave County filed a complaint in federal court involving the opioid litigation. That's been ongoing. There's the defendants in those actions have kind of taken two different tracks. One is through settlement, and there's been different discussions, things about settlement with the big three and Johnson & Johnson. A couple different defendants went a different route, and that was to file for bankruptcy protection. That would include Mallinckrodt and then also Purdue. What we have here is Mallinckrodt. When you file a bankruptcy action in a Chapter 11, you file a plan for reorganization, how you want to pay your creditors. They filed that plan in bankruptcy court in America, in the United States, and it was approved, whenever the plan is presented, the creditors then vote on it. Mojave County has already voted on the plan, but Mojave County already approved that. We did that by board action on August 16th, 2021. After that, the bankruptcy judge approved the plan. The only hiccup, and the reason why I'm coming before the board today, is because Mallinckrodt's parent company is an Irish company, and under Irish law, the Irish bankruptcy court or the equivalent has to also approve the plan. So basically, we are submitting our approval again, this time in Ireland as opposed to in America. So we're asking the court to approve the plan. Well, we're asking the court to appoint an examiner in the Irish proceeding in order to vote in favor of the plan. In Irish law, it's called a scheme of arrangement.
Questions for Ryan?
I think it's just interesting this falls right after St. Patrick's Day. But the luck of the Irish, I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it.
It's good to see everyone again.
You have it, so ordered. That concludes our agenda.
Vaccine